Battle Rankings Live. I'm Svetlana Meyer, and today I'm joined with some guys from the Battle Badgers Club. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Rick Earhart. I suppose I style myself Battle Badger Rick for most of this sort of stuff, so we'll go with that.
I'm Earl Rischel. Been kind of helping out with Battle Badgers for a while. So, yeah, not really Battle Badger Earl yet, but I guess we'll talk.
If anybody's Battle Badger Earl, you're Battle Badger Earl.
I'm still working on becoming Battle Badger Rick, so.
All right, awesome. So you guys are with Battle Badgers. What first got you started playing with tabletop games?
Do you want to go first, Earl?
Yeah. I was homeschooled, and my aunt and uncle played D&D, and I was a big nerd, and I flocked to seeing tabletop things. And then one day I would go to school for orchestra, and my stand partner, I played bass, told me about Warhammer. So I'd go to his house, and we'd play with orcs and stuff. And then I found a local game store called Rockheads, and I played a little bit. I didn't really have the money to like build out a full army at the time because I was like in middle school. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started, and painting D&D models and trying to paint Warhammer armies, but to no success. So
Those take a long time to paint.
yeah, and when you're 12, you don't have enough money for them. So
no money, no internet, right? No one to tell you how to do it. So you do the thing that I did where you just take your enamels and put them on bare plastic.
Yeah.
So for me, I grew up overseas on Navy bases, and so the toys that were available were fairly limited. But I remember a neighbor moved in, and he had a copy of Hero Quest, and that became the single greatest, coolest, most awesomest thing. Most awesomest, that's probably not right, but we're going to go with it. That we could possibly do. And so I was immediately interested. And then later on, when we would travel back stateside to visit family, I remember visiting my uncle and being excited to see family that I hadn't seen, like a lot or ever in some cases, I suppose. And my uncle had quite the collection of micro armor, and just being fascinated with his tackle boxes of tiny, tiny little tanks and the games that they would play. And so really interested at that point, and got a copy of I think Battle Masters for Christmas one year. And so as a kid, it was always super interested in it. But like Earl said, you have all kinds of energy as a kid, but not a whole lot of money or agency. So kind of was interested, but didn't really get into it until much later.
All right, cool. So when were you like really able to start playing consistently?
I'll go first if you don't mind, Earl. And just
yeah, go for it.
So in college, I remember this very distinctly because so my best friend in college, he and I were sitting there after a lecture, and we were talking about Marvel Comics had the Civil War story arc was going on, and we both wanted to read it. And so like, well, hey, there's a comic book store called Rockheads, the place that Earl was just talking. There's a joint down in Kenosha. We can go check that out. And so after the lecture, we head down that way to go find the comic book store. And as we're walking through it, we walk past a bunch of 40K stuff. I was like, man, as a kid, I always wanted to do this, but I never had the money to do it. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to do this too. He's like, hey, I've got a buddy, Nick, who's a Battle Badger, who does this. And so my buddy Kyle introduced me to Nick, and then Nick taught us to play that. And that game turned into, 30,000 other games. And now I've got a basement full of them.
Yeah, that's actually why I blocked out the back. I don't want you to see I just moved, and like my entire pile of shame is back here behind the Merkava. So
this is my painting area, and this is the very neat painting area. There's a bunch of chaos on the other side of the room. It's just all like paints and airbrush stuff and
yeah,
sheer chaos in my basement. So what do you guys? What do you two in particular do with Battle Badgers?
Well,
Like a role.
basically, like, to just take that one, I kind of came in. I was fortunate because I had a friend who knew Rick, who ran a game store, who was kind of where this kind of started, and I had to spend a lot of time, working on my career and going to college and stuff. So I came back into this after they've already kind of been established. So it's been like maybe the last 3 years or so I've been coming and showing up, and I actually got into Flames of War by wanting to have a group that played an actual game every week, as opposed to like the hordes and hordes of like other games we would collect, or you know Warhammer, where everyone collects it, but it seems like there's not that many people who play it, or every year there's less people who play it, or at least around us. So mostly, Rick and I are both adults with, we're both married with kids, and it's hard to be there every week. So one of us has always tried to be there to help get the club moving, break ice with people, say, hey, you look like you're standing there. Do you need a game? Do you need a game? And try and get people to come in the middle. Get new players, because people will walk in and they see these massive tables, and they have nothing but questions. I mean, you can just see like they just come in and most people wander in because they think it's a video game store, and they come in and there's 20 people standing around, and there's these hills and mountains and plains and tanks, and they're just like, what is this? So it's like that's kind of what our biggest thing is, as far as like what we do,
Yeah.
But
nothing draws a crowd like a crowd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's Earl's got it spot on. We don't have titles or roles, obviously, but if we were to put one on it, maybe ringmaster, face, just somebody to kind of direct traffic and keep things going. And there's a bunch of guys that step up and do that kind of stuff, because it's a big crowd. But and just Earl hit it square.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Always there.
Awesome. So what games does your club play?
Well, every Thursday is club nights, and we play Flames of War. Now, there are all kinds of other games that our members play with each other, but club night itself is generally reserved for Flames of War.
Flames of War and Flames of War like games, like
variants, Team Yankee, Great War, Vietnam, all that kind of stuff. But typically Flames of War. But the guys and gals all collect and play all kinds of other things as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for a while there was a song. Yeah, for a while there was a Song of Ice and Fire, and most people have Blood Bowl and stuff like that. And Horus Heresy is kind of big right now. But the one thing we always fall back on is every Thursday you can come in and find a game of Flames of War. So
we like to keep that momentum. It makes a lot of sense, so you don't end up breaking one large group up into 4 small groups. Because when you've got 20 guys and gals coming to play a game, if 4 of them don't show up, you still got 16 people. There's no problem finding a game. If you've got 20 people showing up and 5 of them are looking to play this regularly, 5 of them are looking to play this regularly, and 4 of them don't show up, wheels start to fall off. So we've been trying to just kind of keep that focus and keep that momentum.
So you're talking about club nights, game nights. What other events do you do?
Well, we let's see. We always make it a point to participate in the Thanksgiving deal that I think Battle Rankings and Battlefront put on, right? That's you guys. We had the big one last year. We won the thing last year, so that was really cool. We had, I think, something north of 30 players and a huge pile of toys, so that was really fun to do.
Yeah, it was like 14 or 15 on
each
table.
It was ridiculous. The table ran the length of the store. It was really cool to do.
Yeah,
we're hoping to do bigger this year.
Yeah, we had 400 points of Soviets in literally like a 3-foot span. It was wild.
And we also like to do tournaments. We've started doing them once a quarter. We actually just did one last weekend at a bowling alley nearby. We also like to do scenario play. We've got some really great boards. You can find us at on Game Universe for normally for the D-Day anniversary. We'll have our Point to Hawk board or our easy green beach board out for some scenario play. You can also see those at Adepticon every once in a while. Battlefront will have us out there doing some demos and stopping people in the hallway with like Earl was saying, pretty tables and pretty tanks. But the bread and butter really is the Thursday nights club night. That's where we bring people in. That's where we hold on to people. That's where the club lives.
So how many people usually show up to your club nights then?
Go ahead, Earl.
If it's a slow night, honestly, it's at least 14 people, and we've had upwards of 27. But on average, it's somewhere right around 20, 18 to 20, and it's been strong. I mean, I think there's been a big resurgence, especially because like coming out of lockdown, a lot of people were looking to get out and do stuff and see people again and touch grass, and we just kind of hammered on that momentum, and it's been growing since then. So
COVID really helped the club
on the back end, sure, yeah.
It was kind of weird actually, because it was one of those things where Rick and I came out of basically hiding. We went to see who was all happening. It's just like coming out of your hole for a while. It's like you come to the store, and we met a whole group of people that were playing a little bit here and there, and they were kind of playing like guerrilla matches together. They knew there was a club there, and it was wild because, I mean, we hadn't played Flames of War together in like almost a year or two, and these guys were playing like every week, and they're like, "Oh, these are the guys that run the club," and it's like, yeah, I don't remember the rules. It was kind of wild, but that plus like who we had plus them became this like nucleus, and it was just like this ball of people that just kind of built off each other. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, it was definitely like a wake up moment, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, I haven't played this game in a year. Like,
miss people, miss things, sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the whole club night deal is, first off, everybody is there to play or to hobby or to talk the game, but the amount of camaraderie involved, and it almost feels like a pub scene sometimes. That like it's soda pop, but people are buying rounds of drinks. The pizza joint next door loves us because there's normally 4 or 5 pizzas that got picked up and just thrown on the table for folks. It's somebody different each week, just kind of kicking in and making it. A club, right? Just making sure whether you're playing your game right now or you finish playing your game, you still want to be around. You look forward to it for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah, and that consistency and just bringing people together. I mean, I'm sure that helps with new players coming in.
Yeah, the consistency is very important. It's all about convenience, right? Accessibility and consistency. So making sure that you're there, because like Earl said, we've got plenty of people that have found us just because they were in and they were looking at the Flames, the Battlefront models, and somebody at the store says, "Oh, well, hey, if you're considering that, just so you know, we've got a club called the Battle Badgers that are here every Thursday." Well, now that person knows that all they got to do is pop in on a Thursday, and they're on their way. There's no hey Rick, when can you make it? It's Thursday. It's Thursday night. We'll be there.
Yeah.
So usually the store employees will kind of like guide.
Absolutely.
Lookers throughout the week, kind of to it as well.
Yeah. We've previously had signs up at the store as well over the merchandise or near the merchandise that says, hey, the Battle Badgers play here on Thursday nights, and so there's the calendar up front, and every Thursday, all it's just big block letters, Flames of War, Battle Badgers. So.
That's awesome. That's exciting to hear about a club, your club working so closely with this store. What is the story of Battle Badgers, or like how it got started?
Well, the start. I suppose I'll take this one, just because we were just. So I got your list of questions, and I went and I looked through notes from everything else, and I actually got the club's birthday. So prior to this, a bunch of guys, we hung out, we played games, but we never called it a club or gave it a name until February 16th, 2013. And that was don't know if you guys recall, but Battlefront used to have the Ranger program, where they would compensate players in terrain to go and teach people to play the game. And so we had I had always wanted to play Flames of War since I'd found it at a store in Joliet called Leisure Hours, and just couldn't find anything that anybody who carried it up by us until I went and bought 2 little army boxes, myself and my buddy Nick, at a place called Adventure Games, and we painted those, and it was just he and I for a little bit, and he kind of lost interest in it. And then the fellow that Earl was talking about earlier, Ken, opened up his store, and Flames of War was what he did, or was one of the things that he did. So it just became the place that we got together. And so that's what we were doing for a long while. And then we applied to that Ranger program, my buddy Lee and I, and that worked out. And so it just kind of rolled into that. At that point, it was maybe 3 or 4 of us. And then, as people heard that we were, taking weekends and driving to conventions and hanging out and enjoying ourselves and getting paid in toys to do it. It just kind of grew for a little while until eventually that store went away and things kind of slowed down or moved into my basements in Racine for a long while. And then I moved up this way towards Milwaukee, and we found Game Universe, and that's when things kind of exploded, I suppose, when we were in a nice central location with plenty of space and the catalyst that Earl called out earlier with everybody coming out of lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a pretty decent group prior. Like when I started in 2019 with them, I mean, there was a decent amount of guys, and like you guys did have, tournaments that you would travel to, and so I've been pretty fortunate to kind of stumble into this and then kind of be able to help out to be the part that I have played in it. So I can't say enough about as far as everything that Rick and Ken and Ryan and Lee and everybody that they've contributed to get this together, and the terrain and the Ranger program. I mean, the terrain is the biggest thing. I can't tell you how good it feels when we go and we come up, we get up early and we go somewhere and we set up tables for like a tournament, and I'm walking around by the vendor area if it's like a convention, and you hear people, they don't know I'm part of the thing, but they're talking about how great the tables look. And I mean, that's the best, especially when you see some bigger tournaments that are big crowds and it looks like they have 3 pieces of fishbowl aquarium stuff sitting out on the table, and you're like, ugh, that's kind of rough. This is supposed to be like a major tournament next to us, and they don't have much going on there. So it's a lot of pride, feels special.
So with the Ranger program, how many new players have you been able to bring into Battle Badgers or clubs in their areas?
That's a really good question. I honestly, I could name a couple of stores that we brought in the rounds. I don't have a number for players specifically, but it would be a good deal. Because I mean, you think about it, so the Ranger program, I don't believe is running any longer, but it is very much what we are doing in that, our club is all about bringing people into the hobby and making it accessible and teaching, whether it be the game or the hobby side of it, because we've got some very talented hobbyists in the club. But I would bet that number has 3 digits, but that maybe my opinion is biased. But I would bet over the last, 9.5 years, I would bet that number has 3 digits. If we were to, and doubly so if you were to expect, or if you were to, count the folks that came on because we brought, somebody in and that store picked it up and things like that. But what was going on for a while there was hitmen is probably the wrong word here, but our friends at Battlefront would say, hey, I've got a store that's considering the game. They're 4 hours away from you. Can you make it? So things like that.
I think one of the biggest topics throughout us trying to like interview different clubs is the challenge of the number of stores that have Battlefront products. and trying to locate those products immediately in that 20 minutes time frame that you might be looking at for, versus waiting 3 months because of international shipping and transport, or like trying to shop online at some club or some store that's I don't know, maybe out in California or somewhere else, just
selling you pre-orders that they don't know when they're going to come in. That was a big thing over the last couple of years. Somebody buys a pre-order and or they're new and they don't
exactly. Like we can order stuff online all we want, but that's not guaranteeing us the product by the time we hit the tournament.
Right. Or even when the local craze is kind of passing, One thing, about to keep going back to momentum is like right now we're all in late war. German Bulge, American Bulge came out. That's where people are. And if you have to wait 6 months.
Pack.
Yeah, exactly. And like if you wait 6 months to get something, or even 2 or 3 months, and people are starting to move on to mid-war now, because now the mid-war book's out and people are getting excited to play, their fins again. It's alienating for somebody to, that was for you, buddy. It's alienating for a new player who just spent $100 on a tank box, get started box, and then they're waiting for it, and then they're just sitting there and they're watching everyone move on. So they've been excluded from one thing. Now that boat has passed because everyone's showing up with mid-war and they're on to the next. Granted, like if there's a big enough crowd, you're going to have people, but I felt it in the beginning because I was ordering from online places because I was like, well, I don't know where else to get this, and they don't have the thing I want here. It was before the club was like basically setting our own restocking levels at the stores, and I just watch kind of the thing move by, and I've been cognizant of that for new players, and that's why I've tried to do my best to at least be like, hey, this is where we're at when we're coming in. This is what you might consider, or give even people options that are going to play both eras, so they always have a game. And so that goes back to the accessibility thing. But
that's a thing that's changed as we've gained that momentum. The local game store actually involves us in stocking decisions and stuff like that when it comes out. When, hey, this is what we're expecting to come out next month. What do you think these numbers ought to look like? Stuff like that. So that's been neat.
Yeah, and if you know the hype for your group and you know who plays what, and you know what they have, and that being like there is a lot of new players. There's not guys who've had the same armies for 10 years. No dig at anyone who's gotten in that early. I don't mean any disrespect by that, but you kind of know what people will buy or what they're looking for, or maybe they saw something that's in a local meta or a tournament meta that's national, and they haven't had the opportunity to buy those things. There's a lot of stuff that, especially during the lockdowns and the supply chain shortages, where you just simply don't have, like, let's just say 14 armored cars, or even the amount of half tracks you would need to be competitive in a major tournament, or whatever the national meta is. So I don't know, not to segue into like jumping the gun on that or anything, but that's kind of it, is just trying to base what we do around what was available during that time, because new players were coming in and buying plastic, $100 box of plastic armor. So a lot of our tournaments have been armor centric, because that's just, quite frankly, we spent 3 years getting people to buy boxes of armor, and we can't have them come to a tournament where they're going to get raffle stomped by somebody who doesn't run that, and it's been pretty cool seeing how many people like Hit the Beach was a big one for a long time. That, I mean, Rick's definitely sold a ton, but I had double digits of just sales of people who come in. But it was such an easy thing to sell, especially when someone walks in and they only want one half of it, and you can turn around and be like, does anyone want the other half of this for $25-$30? And someone's like, I'll take it. And there they go, they have another 8 Shermans, and bitty boom, you got a new player.
And I mean, my husband's been playing this for several years, and when there's a new starter box out, he'll look at the starter box. I mean, he's been playing for this for years. We have a whole entire room in our house dedicated to models of various games. He'll buy the new starter box if he sees that there's a bunch of things in it that he knows he needs, and it's going to be a lot cheaper to buy that starter box and have a few extra units here or there versus
Absolutely.
trying to locate that one box of Shermans that you can't find because the store's sold out already.
Yeah.
My wife calls our basement the nerdery. It's full of little toys, models, books, and all kinds of stuff like that. But no, those and when it comes to accessibility, Battlefront is definitely doing it right there when it comes to those starter sets. I mean, there's no such thing as a cheap miniatures game, but the $65 for a rule book and 2 armies is just about unheard of anywhere else. So when it comes to getting people to start, having those front and center has been what's the word I'm looking for here? Irreplaceable. Very, very important.
Yeah, I mean it's funny too because like, I like Warhammer. I have Warhammer armies, but it's like you're sitting there and you see somebody, and they're like looking at it and they want to play. And they're like, man, I don't got money for this, and they're holding a box of Warhammer stuff. And you're like, man, you can't tell me you don't have money for this. Like, put one of those boxes back, and you have a whole starter army here. And they're like, man, you got a point. It's like you're buying. Like, it's like just give up the upgrade pack that you don't need because it's going to be irrelevant in a week, and just buy yourself a whole starter army and come play with us. Like
that's one of point of pride, I suppose, for me. Like I like 40K stuff as well. I have it. I love the universe. I love the models. I collect it and paint it too. But we've got a couple of guys in the club who were previously solely 40K players who were around on Thursday nights looking to try to get a game of 40K or AOS or something in, and not being able to do it reliably, and sitting on the outside and looking at the gigantic pile of historical players who are just having this grand old time, and they decide that, okay, you know what, fine, I do that now. Like the first guy that I could think of that would Noah came to us today, right?
Well, we were trying to get him to come over and hang out with us forever. We're like, dude, just come over here and like just play with us. And he's like, nah. And then it was like the third week in a row. It's like, hey man, what's up? Your game not show up? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, if you hung out with us, it wouldn't happen. I'm like, you already
a game every week.
Yeah, it's like you already know us. You're already here with us every week. You might as well just get a game in. And yeah, it's worked more often than not. And
set that hook.
Yeah.
You have to convince the fantasy people to come over to play the historical things.
Yeah, now he's got quite the collection of Brits now, and he's become pretty knowledgeable about it too when it comes to the history.
He's a smart guy too, and so he's a good player. And it was a good win because I mean, he's definitely being like a competitive 40K guy. He's definitely not bad at Flames of War, so it's been cool.
So you're talking about being in the Milwaukee area. Where do people come from to go to your club?
Okay. Well, we've got folks. I suppose this is going to kind of rely on folks knowing their way around Wisconsin counties here. But anybody in the Milwaukee area. So I'm in Waukesha, just west of there. We got folks in Kenosha and Racine, just down essentially southeast Wisconsin, northeast Illinois. We're the store that we play in is in Franklin, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. But we get folks from, like Earl was saying earlier, we've got a guy who comes from Madison every week to play with us. I mean, he drives past so many other game stores to come play, with his club, with the Battle Badgers. That's got to be like a 90-minute drive. Does that sound about right, Earl?
Yeah, at least. I mean, depending on where he is in Madison, but yeah, it's at least over an hour.
And, we've got guys who come up from Illinois as well, so that's probably about an hour as well. But the club, the core of the club is kind of sprinkled around the Milwaukee area and the suburbs there, and the Chicago-Milwaukee corridor there.
Yeah, it's I mean, if you lived out here, it's kind of a 45-minute area, I guess. They say everyone in the Midwest, you judge distance by time.
Yeah.
And so it's like 45 minutes out of that area in the club, and we have people as far as now Wisconsin Rapids.
I suppose.
But
we had one of our most dedicated players recently moved away. We the tournament that we just ran, we ran in honor of him, the Phil Gertler Memorial Tournament, which strangely enough Phil won.
It's a great going away party.
Yeah.
His face on candles.
No, he still comes down and plays. It's been really cool. I mean, he moved that far away, and it's still important enough for him to come down and play. And we really appreciate that. He's a good guy, and he was a big win for the club. Great to have around.
I mean, one of the contingencies for John, whenever if we ever move, is like how far away are we from some of the clubs that we play with? Because we're in such an awkward area of Ohio where there's not an actual club. So like we're driving, he's driven all the way out to Pittsburgh,
Okay.
Pittsburgh,
Wow.
Pennsylvania. He's driven to Indianapolis. He's driven down to Elizabethtown just to get a game, just to go to a tournament. And so we've committed the miles to go to some of these tournaments, just because they're not necessarily where we are.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, is to be present. And yeah, it's amazing. I mean, where'd Bill come from, Rick, for the tournament?
Bill came from actually. We met Bill in Madison about 10 years ago at Last Square. Nowadays, he plays with the Screaming Eagle Crowd. Those guys out there in the La Crosse or the Minneapolis area. So he came from a ways off. He actually drove out the night before, stuck around, went to the Civil War Museum the next morning.
That's cool. Yeah, Bill was cool. I enjoyed my game with him.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players. I wish he was a little closer. I'd love to have him around. He styles himself the Mad Hungarian, the kind of guy who plays a list because he likes the list. My kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not always about the wins. It's about having a fun game.
The history and the hobby and telling the story, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about people who play a list that they like. I have to shout out Steve. Steve, you play them KV1s every chance you can. It doesn't matter what era. If they'll let you take the KVs, you will. And God bless you, man.
I figured you were going to go with Ken and his Hungarian cavalry.
Yeah, but that's cool and pretty janky. But like, Steve is all about those KV1s, and I have one thing to say to you, Steve. Just bring planes.
So you mostly run events in the Milwaukee area, then?
Yeah, generally in the Milwaukee area. Well, we go down to. We've got again, we're kind of spoiled for choices in here in the Chicago Milwaukee area. We also help out with our friends down at the Grognard down in the Schaumburg area, right?
Yeah.
So, we're running a tournament at Dragonfall in October 22nd. We're running a Flames of War tournament and a Team Yankee tournament there at the
Grand Geneva.
Yeah, that's actually we're running it for them. It's in Lake Geneva this year, right?
Yeah, it's the Grand Geneva. Oh, actually, I don't know. I wasn't setting. I said I did. I didn't do it this year. You have to ask Joel. I'm assuming it's at the Grand Geneva.
That is. It's in Lake Geneva. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, generally this area we help out with a couple of different stores in the area. We've got friends up in Oshkosh. We've got friends down in Schaumburg and our locals here.
So where can Battle Badgers be found?
Game Universe in Franklin on Thursday, or I suppose battlebadgers.com would be a reasonable place to start as well. We got to do a little cleaning up there. That page is a little out of date, but we've really been focused on the club night. So anytime you're in the Milwaukee area, I suppose anytime you're in the Milwaukee area and it's Thursday.
Thursday, what time?
We generally get started. There's generally folks there. I would say you figure the younger guys get there around 3:30. Is that safe to say, Earl?
Yeah, I mean, probably 3 at the earliest, reliably. I mean, there's people there sometimes by noon or 1, depending on what you got going on or what time of the year. But like 5 o'clock is generally a good shot. That's usually when most people are rolling in and we got the tables
coming out of the office. Yeah, it's generally it's all afternoon till close for the most part. But showing up around 5 or 6 o'clock is when folks tend to roll in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also have a Facebook group. It's Games Universe Franklin, the Battle Badgers, or Flames of War. I don't know. I'd have to look up how it is, but
Game Universe Flames of War group, and then there's also a Battle Badgers Facebook
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. So if you wanted to watch pictures from the night and see kind of our postings and our shenanigans, that's a good place to follow. Keep in touch, especially if you guys are if anyone's in the area, or wants to get a game. We also have a Discord. So.
And I'll make sure all of that is linked in the description.
Keen, appreciate it.
And then how do you recommend people find a gaming group?
Well, I mean, you have to be lucky enough to be around a local to make it really easy, right? And hopefully you're around a local that's like we were talking about earlier with that consistency on the club side of things. And if there isn't one, then you've got to be the person who does it, I suppose, if you're that interested. What we've found to be really important is convenience and accessibility, right? The club has a huge collection of terrain. We store them in boxes at the store, ready to be played on, as specific as tables. You want to play something Eastern Front, use this one. You want to do something European, use this one. You're in the desert, use this one. So that it takes, you're not digging through the stuff in the back to put things together. It's that consistency and accessibility. But if you're not lucky enough to have a local nearby, you kind of just gotta dig in and be the guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off that, I'd say just buy yourself like a Hit the Beach or a starter box, the 2 Army starter box. Build the whole thing for yourself, and then just invite your friends over. Anyone that's watched Saving Private Ryan like 5 times a week when they were kids would probably be a good place to start. Or
it's funny you say so. Saving Private Ryan, for what I like. One of my favorite armies to play, one of my favorite armies that I ever built and painted, my 101st. I suppose now they're Bastogne parachute rifles, right, or something along those lines. But my U.S. paratroopers, my winter themed stuff, and despite the fact that I own and have owned, Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan on Blu-ray for years and years and years, whenever that movie was on, if I was just channel surfing, that was the end of the day. I would I'd watch it with the commercials and everything. I'd go get my models and sit down there and paint and watch. That movie just took over for me whenever it happened.
You're like, I'm done with the day.
Yep, that's it. I don't know what else was on the docket, but it doesn't matter. I am painting paratroopers.
I thought you were going to say watched Band of Brothers for like the whole entire series of Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, both
on repeat.
I had Saving Private Ryan on VHS, so I feel like we're dividing the community though, because there's at least like half the people will be like, no, it was Enemy at the Gates, and like that was the one.
Actually, Svetlana, you're right. It was Band of Brothers for the paratroopers. I was thinking of my 29th Infantry for the Saving Private Ryan. You're absolutely right. You got me.
How dare you? But
I mean, I think just a general statement of if you're willing to sit down and watch a historical documentary and just be done for the night, maybe try Team Yankee and Flames of War.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like Discovery Channel just stopped. All they do is like World War II history, like after a certain point, like somebody's watching it. So you just have to find somebody who's got that on, and they'll probably play Flames of War with you. Like that's kind of my take on it.
The other thing to keep in mind is there's a difference between a demo game and an introduction game. Make sure if it's somebody who's just walking by to take a taste, or who stops and is interested, keep it inside of 5-10 minutes if you can. Don't go crazy. Hit them with the whole thing the second time. But that first go round, just keep it light, keep it easy, and keep them interested, if that makes sense.
Stick with that one platoon of two platoons of tanks, 1v1.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines, yeah. Because otherwise, people who've never, there's a lot of interest in miniature gaming, obviously, but people who've never done it before, it looks incredibly intricate. People who've never seen or experienced this before, who are used to board games, Monopoly, Candyland, things like that. I've never seen a game where you need a tape measure.
Right.
It's how big, so just keep it light, keep it quick for that demo.
Yeah, especially if they're seeing people who are experienced at playing, and you're moving 6 inches of your tactical and you don't even measure, and the guys are just going back and forth. I mean, that for people, I mean, they look at it and they're like, I don't know. Like, what was that? So, yeah, definitely.
You have to work through the learning curve.
For sure, for sure. It's cool though. I mean, there's stuff for everybody though. I mean, it's for all levels. I mean, there's been people who come in who've actually come in to buy the game for World of Tanks.
Yeah, yep,
World of
that's
Tanks
also
singles.
Battlefront.
Yeah, like I buy the singles if I want to round something out. I'm never going to play that game. But there's tons of people who've come in and been like looking for that, and they're like, "Wait, what's this?" And they're like, "Well, this is Flames of War. This is like the full thing." And they're like, "Ooh, you know." So, yeah. But,
How do you recommend? We kind of touched on it earlier, but how do you recommend it of someone to start a gaming club if it's just not in their area?
like I was saying, like just come in and have that starter set ready, so you have at least something on the other side for someone to play. You know, and if you can go to a game store and have a minimal amount of terrain and 2 armies ready to go that are 50 points each, and you can get someone to play, or if you can find a group, you know, I'm not advocating poaching someone else's people, but you know, you might come in and someone's hanging out and they don't have a game, and you're like, hey, you want to play a little starter game, 50 points each? And if you can facilitate that for somebody, or even have a demo set up, or Rick, you could probably talk more about setting up little demo stands. I mean,
Sure.
I think that's the biggest thing, because it really is just about connecting the dots of the people who want it with the people who will do it, you know?
Well, like we said earlier, nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. I mean, the demo thing was and is a very large part of what we did and what we do. I remember we built it's a suitcase that folds out into a 3 foot by 3 foot deal. And nowadays, I put the World of Tanks Prokhorovka mat. I probably butchered the name there, but it's a printed mat that's got some terrain on it, and then you just throw a couple of buildings on it and some fence lines, and then a little less than what's in the Hit the Beach starter set. We generally just do like a platoon of 3 Shermans and a platoon of paratroopers and a platoon of grenadiers and 1 or 2 two Stugs opposite the 3 Shermans, and just walk people through that. But yeah, be consistent, have a spot, have a time, have a day, be there at that spot on that time and that day, and be as accessible as you can. Keep it light, keep it quick. That way, if you can stop one person and it doesn't take that long, if you've got one person stopping and looking and talking, you might end up with 2, you might end up with 3, and keep going. But it's if you're trying to run somebody through the entire game the first time just because they happen to be walking through the store, you're asking too much.
Yeah, and you would be shocked how many people we run through demo games or they buy boxes, and you're like, that guy seemed cool, but I don't think we're ever going to see him. And it'll go like 6 months, and they'll come in with like a handful of stuff, and they're like, I built it. And you're like, holy cow. I mean, I wanted you to come back, but I kind of, it's been a couple months. Like, I didn't think you were coming back. And they're like, I did it. And you're like, wow. I mean, you can never, for anyone doing that, don't get discouraged, because you don't know the impact you meet on people. And I think or the impact you make on people, because a lot of the people in our hobby space are introverts. They just are. And they're not going to look at you after that and be like, that was the coolest thing ever. Thank you so much, Rick Deerhart. You are super personable, and I'm going to explain exactly how I felt. They're going to be like, cool. And then just like, and then gone. And they might come back, they might not, but more often than not, they do show up. And you're like, oh, wow, man. And they're like, yeah, and like their personality is maybe still super introverted, but they're there, and it's pretty cool, and it's nice to see those people kind of start to come out of their shell after that, and you kind of get to know these people, and it's pretty rewarding. But you can't be discouraged, because I don't know, it's tough.
And it doesn't have to just be retired old guys.
Oh goodness, no!
Really, it's really
absolutely
for anybody who's interested.
Absolutely, we've got members as young as 12 years old, who So I mean, the store's policy is anybody younger than 12 has to have an adult with them, and so we tell everybody, hey, look, your kids are welcome to come play, but if they're younger than 12, somebody needs to be there with them. We've got, I want to say, well, we've got two people that I can think of at 12 years old who show up and play semi regularly, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is like when Earl was talking about earlier, when you get someone just walking through the store and you just kind of pick it up. One of my favorite things is when a family buys in, I suppose, and comes back, and so you've got dad and daughter, or grandpa and grandson, or something like that. That's just super cool. My daughter is a big. She's there just about every Thursday, whenever she doesn't have dance. She actually was really upset last year because ballet was at the same time as Flames of War. But
I'm sure that was a proud dad moment.
Yeah.
I'm doing something right here.
She likes to paint. She likes to play. We're still working on tank identification and stuff like that. But I would say that she's definitely, she might not be an expert, but she's definitely above average for a 10-year-old. So. With tank identification, excuse me.
I mean, yeah, it's a learning. It's just a learning process. I'm sure she's gonna go into high school and just be like, yeah, I took American history or whatever, and they forgot about X, Y, and Z.
Sure. Well, the part of it that I like the most as a father, the history is super cool. I love the idea that she's picking some of that up, but the decision making, the agency, the executive decision making, the measuring of what the pros and cons and possible outcomes of different moves and decisions make. Like we said it earlier, but like Candyland. Kids, when people think of a game, you think of Candyland. For a kid's game, you think of something like Candyland. That's not a game.
Or Shoots and Ladders.
There are no decisions being made. The game is, like the cards are shuffled. The game is over. There's already a winner. There's nothing to be done. And I really like, being able to pose questions like, well, what makes more sense? Do we want to roll 4 dice looking for 5s, or do we want to roll 2 dice looking for 6s, or are they the same?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
you'll find out in real time if your decision was correct or not, and it's I think it's a side of things that people don't think about. There's probably a lot of people who don't use a tape measure much in their life, let alone weighing the decision of moving and being like, okay, I can move into range and take 2 shots or 4 shots at a better opportunity to hit, or I can stay back and double, and then you're trying to do the math in your head, and at the end of the day you're like, well, I don't know, I'm just going to roll it and I'm going to get whatever I get. And those moments when you pull things off and you're like, I'm going for it, and you get it, or you shoot down a flying tank with a self-defense AA from a half track on the first time the typhoons come in. I mean, that's just magical. And it's one of those things where, like, I like role-playing games a lot, as far as like D&D, and I like Flames of War because there's a lot of people out there who don't want to play D&D, but there's, like, with the emergence of like Critical Role and stuff, there's a lot of people who have become aware of the space, but they don't necessarily want to sit down and tell a story. They would just want to bang tanks together and shoot at stuff. And what's cool about all of the tabletop stuff, whether it's role-playing games or even Blood Bowl or Flames of War, is what's going to happen is being created spontaneously. You can't script it, and it'll probably never happen again. You can try and recreate it, and even if you do everything the same, the dice rolls will be different. And the 2 people at that table, they're creating something completely genuine in that moment. And I think that's what's so cool about it. And that's what I think more people like nowadays. I mean, you play a lot of video games, and, you run around a map and where all the spawn points are, and how to pull your gun up and shoot, headshot, or you're playing a puzzle game and you've seen it before, you've seen the same puzzle. Whereas everybody plays differently. Every map is different. The dice rolls are going to be different. You might not be feeling that good day. You might be in a rush. You might be feeling super tactical, and it's always different. And I think that's really special, and it's something that probably gets overlooked the most in our hobby, but it's amazing as far as I'm concerned.
I think the other nice thing compared to like you were talking about like role playing games, kind of like D&D or whatever. Sometimes those just like take a lot of time. Not to say that a whole game of Team Yankee or Flames of War doesn't take time. That's still a 2-hour time period. But I mean, like, if you're in a D&D group that wants to play a 12-hour campaign or is like on this ongoing campaign, you're kind of committed to that for an extended period of time that you can't actually truly commit to, and then it kind of like falls off or stops or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
I mean,
like sometimes it's easier to just to bang tanks for 2 hours and see what the decision is there instead of
absolutely, and it's one of those things where it's like you can have a full-time commitment to it, but also put in what you want to get out of it. And
yeah.
There's nights I don't feel like playing Flames of War, but I'll show up, I'll say hi to everybody, and it's nice to see everyone, and then I can leave. And there's nights I'm there till I'll get off early at work, or I'll work remote there, finish up my day, and then just be there till close and hang out with everybody after that. And it's cool because it's like a familiar thing. You get to pick up where you left off. Where like I DM stuff, and it's hard to get a group of people together, even for a 3-hour session once a month, let alone anything greater than that. And what's cool about the Flames of War thing is that there's so many people that come that are from all walks of life, from the 12, 13-year-old kids who come in who like put together their Hit the Beach stuff by themselves and they painted it themselves. I mean, that's amazing. All the way up to people who are, working professionals or teachers or tradesmen, and just all over the thing. And it's so cool that you get to have all those people together and have something in common. So
awesome. So any closing thoughts before we
Sure. I suppose one of the things I just want to ask everybody to keep in mind and to keep in the fore as we're playing this game is that it's a game. It's a game we take seriously. It's a game we all really enjoy. But bringing new players into this hobby is going to be a function of making it fun and accessible. Embrace what new players like. Don't beat them up for it. If it's tanks, it's tanks. That's fine. I mean, when it really boils down to here, this is the same. I'm thinking of 4-year-old Battle Badger Rick sitting somewhere with little plastic soldiers making pew 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 noises. I'm still doing the same thing today. It's just the little plastic soldiers are a little more expensive than they were there, and there's more of them. And yeah, I still make noises every once in a while on Thursday.
You just get really excited about
have fun.
Piece of artillery, and you're just like, this is gonna go
absolutely bang. This one's gonna work. No, it's a game. Enjoy it, have fun, and that way, when you're doing that, the people around you are going to have fun, and you're going to have, I honestly, more people around you doing it at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And like the biggest thing is like with what Rick was saying is, I think we all want to know facts and show everybody how many facts we know, and but at the same time, we can't do it at the detriment of like becoming gatekeepers or rivet counters, or just to the point, there's a lot of people who are super excited just to find somebody. We don't want to drive them off. We want to bring them in, and maybe if you get to know them later, you can make fun of their king tigers or whatever. But in the beginning, you definitely have to be empathetic and kind of feel where people are coming from, because it's a whole game about a world that was at war. So I mean, everybody's coming to it from different perspectives and things that they like or don't like, and I think at the end of the day, we all have way more in common than we do, or that we don't, and I think that's finding that common ground is always important. So
awesome. So like, subscribe, comment, share this out to whoever you think should hear it, or like some of the different groups. Recommend your clubs that I might not be entirely aware of. And maybe you'll see your club on the interview, on the podcast, on the YouTube. And yeah, hit all the fun buttons. Let us know what you think. And thank you for watching, listening.
Thanks for having us, Lana.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Bye.